Welcome back to the Make a Baby podcast. I'm Carolina Sotomayor, your podcast host and Reiki womb healer. And today we're talking about something that we desperately need to be talking about because this is a person I found on my FYP on TikTok, and she's amazing. Hi, Robyn. How are you today?
Doing so good. Excited to be here.
I am so excited to talk to you because today we're talking about 5 ways to boost your fertility. And you are a fertility nutritionist. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And can you tell us what exactly is a fertility nutritionist and what is the purpose of working with one?
For sure. So originally I started my training to sort of just be like a general holistic nutritionist. I was like, I'm going to see anybody for anything and I'm going to help them with everything. And then I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, super
Okay.
common 1 in 10 condition, highly
Right.
affects fertility. And it was sort of through my own journey and dealing with that naturally where I came into my specialty of fertility and then, of course, hormones as well. A lot of extra training and stuff on top of that to be able to
Got
get
it.
to this point. And although my title is nutritionist, and we do focus heavily on nutrition and food with my clients, we also do, so like we were talking about before we started recording, like certain things being like one piece of the puzzle. We talk
Right.
about that. We talk about lifestyle and stress and nervous system and all of these things. And how can we use food and the choices that we're making on a daily basis in order to help or hinder those things. And the traditional kind of medical model really gives no guidance on nutrition besides maybe saying lose weight or go on a diet or something like that. And
So
it's not
frustrating.
useful and it's extremely frustrating and disheartening. And it doesn't get the women where they want to be, which
Right.
ultimately is pregnant. And
Right.
so you can do so much with the things that you eat, how you live your life, like the stuff you intake, even supplements, etc., in order to improve your chances, increase your fertility, balance your hormones. I see this happen all the time, and it's just really exciting to be able to kind of bring that clarity to people and help to guide them on that journey.
So you can balance your hormones with food.
For sure.
So many thoughts in my head. One is, I don't think that's commonly known. I think there's a lack of knowledge about our anatomy. There's definitely a huge gap of knowledge on hormones. And I think when I started this podcast, the first season was just like conversations and the audio was super terrible. But then when I started the second season, I realized like this was a bigger approach. It was a bigger attempt because I was learning so much from people. I was like, if I don't know these things, there has to be hundreds or thousands of women who also don't know these things. Like I didn't know, I just thought my period was just when I bleed every month. I didn't know all about, estrogen and all of like the 4 seasons of your cycle or a cycle syncing. Like I didn't know anything. So like to know and hear you say as an expert, you can balance your hormones with food. I don't think people know that. And I think that's really important to highlight because I encounter a lot of women who have financial struggles who cannot afford the multi tens of thousands of dollars for IUI and IVF. And also, I encounter a lot of women who do not want the drugs in their system. They don't want the invasive procedures. They don't want to go that route for their own personal reasons. And to know that there is somebody who can actively work with you in detail to balance your hormones so you can get pregnant, I think is really important. Do you ever work with anyone with endometriosis? Because I see women, the 2 most common things I see, well, actually 3. Emotional trauma is mainly what I deal with, PCOS, and then endo. Do you ever work with anyone with endometriosis?
Yes, quite often. Absolutely. And probably the same thing, like PCOS and endo are kind of the top 2
Right.
conditions. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times they don't even find out about it until they're trying to conceive and then they're having issues.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Yeah, I've learned so much about endometriosis. I don't have endometriosis, but I have learned so much that like I learned that I thought it was a reproductive disease
Mhm.
and it's not, it's an inflammation.
Mhm.
And I was like, whoa, just wildly educated. So, okay, so what are 5 tips for fertility and nutrition? Like, what are the top 5?
Right. So if we're going to break it down, like one of the first ones that I'm always talking about is balancing your blood sugar, specifically when it comes to food. And this is really the best way to do it, is with food, not even medications or anything. And certainly on the fertility journey, like, you don't need to have PCOS, you don't need to be diabetic, you don't need to have insulin resistance in order to focus on balancing your blood sugar via food in order to support your fertility. And so there's sort of like a formula that I give to all of my clients in order to make sure that their meals are supportive of that. And there's three things you need in each of those meals: protein, fat, and fiber. When you combine those things, it's really going to help keep blood sugar stable through the day, which is critical overall for your menstrual cycle, ovarian function, fertility, as your ovaries have like a really delicate relationship with blood sugar and insulin. And if something is
Oh,
slightly off, that can create just a ripple effect of issues in your cycle, and ultimately in trying to conceive.
is there an order that you have to eat those or just at the same meal?
So ideally, each meal is going to have those three things in it. You can get really specific, and some practitioners will do this and say, eat this first in your meal, then this, then that. But to
Mhm.
be honest, that just is not sustainable for a lot of people, and it
Mm,
takes away a lot of the enjoyment from food, which is not what I'm about. So just
got it.
making sure that you have protein, fat, and fiber at every meal. Generally speaking, I will recommend, like, focus on breakfast first. You're going to see the most profound impact on how you feel by focusing just there and making sure you're having like a high protein, savory breakfast that has those elements included.
Can you give an example? Like, what would be a good example of a breakfast that has a protein, fiber, and fat? Because I am not, I think avocado for fat, fiber, I don't even think, I don't know what I would eat. In protein, I just think eggs, bacon, sausage.
Right, absolutely. Those are typical like breakfast proteins, but I actually tend to find, not just for myself personally, because I have PCOS, but my clients as well, regardless of what's going on, is meat, not just eggs. Usually that's just not dense enough. They're just not getting what they need from that.
Mhm.
So, for example, one of the ones that I really like is I will buy these gluten-free frozen waffles. They don't have to be gluten-free for most
Yeah.
people. That's just for me personally as an example. And so I'll
Mhm.
make like a stack. So I'll have that on the bottom. That doesn't really count towards any of it other than like taste and like mobility to get the food in your mouth. And
Yeah.
then I will put on top of that usually some mashed avocado. So that's going to give you
Okay.
fat, but also fiber. And
Okay.
then sometimes I will put a little bit of cooked greens on top of that. So I love like cooking spinach and butter with garlic. I'll put a little bit of
Oh,
that
I
on
would love
top. And
that. Oh,
then
that
on
sounds
top
yummy.
of that, I will put like a breakfast sausage patty. So I make those
Okay.
myself, but if you can find good quality ones in a store, then do that for ease. I just really don't have that where I'm living. And so usually I'll do like ground turkey with like sage and other herbs, form them into patties, cook them ahead of time, and then I'm just sort of reheating one in the morning, and it takes like 5 minutes to put the whole thing together. I heat up the sausage patty, I put the waffle in the toaster, stack it all up. Like, it's very quick. It does, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so that actually gives me really great ideas. I actually have a friend that's coming to visit next week. She's not trying to conceive, but she does have blood sugar issues and she is gluten free. So I'm excited. I was like, I didn't know what to think, but that'll be a great breakfast idea. And you know what? I also think that some way is you were talking about like how to assemble it. I also think that when you're approaching, like, if this is a lifestyle change, you're adapting, like implementing this into your morning routine and trying to make it sustainable. I always like try to hack it. Like, I love to like the you were talking about the mashable avocado. I have found like Costco has, you have to look at the ingredients. I don't know of this, but I found that they have avocado in the cups already.
Mhm.
Do you recommend that, or if it's like organic or if it has clean ingredients? Like, could that be, that could be something that somebody could do, right? Like, if
For
they
sure.
get the waffle, they get the avocado in the cup, because then you're not like scooping it out. And I
Yeah.
would be like, how can I make this easier? I'd probably try to find the patty. I would try to find the avocado. I would try to find I would probably do batch the spinach, and then I would probably
Yeah.
just, is that something that you recommend to clients? Like, how can you make this easier for you so it's sustainable?
100%. Simplicity is the key. And so for some people, that means like purchasing things, like you were saying, as many of the things pre-made as you can, as long as the
Uh-huh.
ingredients are okay. For some people, that simply means that they eat the same breakfast day in and day out. Some people just
Yeah,
can't,
that's me.
and some can, and that's great. But anything you can do to keep things really simple is key. I do also have a TikTok video where I give like 10 meat breakfast ideas in the video.
Ooh, we'll link that in the show
So
notes then. I'll go
yeah.
get that. Because that I think that's for me what you're talking about. Like if I could eat more, like because sometimes eggs are like I can eat the same thing if it's,
Mhm.
but only I could usually do it for like 3 weeks and then I have to rotate out.
Yeah,
I have an expiration date. So
definitely.
what's your second tip?
Second tip would be related to like water and hydration. You know, this and also just the stuff we were talking about, like protein, fat, fiber, balance, like this is all very foundational. And
Right.
a lot of times my clients will come to me and they feel like they're doing everything. And
Hmm.
yet they're not getting where they want to go. And a lot of times these like basic foundational things just totally go over our heads and we don't even really think about it because we think we need things that are more complex. And so they'll
Mm.
be on like a ton of supplements and they'll be doing all this crazy stuff and like tons of powders in a smoothie and like whatever. But foundational pieces like getting enough protein, fat, fiber, drinking enough quality water, etc., are just not even being paid attention to. So water is also key. We're mostly water. Our bodies are mostly water. We need
Hmm.
to keep fluids moving in the reproductive organs in order to help fertility. Water is a big piece of how that stuff is going to get moving. And the other thing too is like there is a difference between just drinking tons of like dead water, so to speak, and
I was
actually
going to
being
ask you what type
hydrated.
of water because I've been on water TikTok and
Mm.
I'm like, okay, so there's water TikTok where you flavor it everything
Oh
that's
yeah.
not natural and gross. And then there's like I put cucumbers and sometimes lime in my water,
Mhm.
but then there's like also like I drink the water from my refrigerator. We change the filter
Mm.
like I think it's every few months.
Yeah.
But then like my husband drinks tap, which I know is like a no-no. And then I've seen these things. This is new for me, so don't come for me, anyone that's listening. A Bergen, what like it's like a two-part, like it has a like a full
The Berkey,
filtration.
the
Is that what it's called? A Bergen? Yeah,
Berkey, yeah.
Birkin. So can you explain the differences of the water
Hmm.
and the importance of which one's best
For
and why
sure.
what it does?
So, I mean, any water is going to be better than no water, but you can go a
Okay.
little overboard with it. Like some of those water filters. So, for example, if it's like a reverse osmosis, and that for a long time was said, like, oh, this is the best because it
Hmm.
removes everything from your water, but it doesn't just take out anything bad that's in the water, chemicals, whatever, toxins, but it also takes out like the minerals and the good stuff that we need. And so if
Hmm.
you're relying constantly on reverse osmosis water, you're going to end up demineralizing yourself. The filter that I like the best, and I have one, it's sort of like a countertop, like it probably would fit in somebody's fridge, but my fridge is too full of other stuff. And it's from Zero Water. I did a lot of research into the different filters you can have, and that is a really good one because you want something that is a good filtration where it's also going to get rid of like heavy metals and stuff. And a lot of the
Oh,
standard filters like Brita, etc., are just not doing that. But
got it.
this filter is not removing the minerals and so on. So I put my tap water in it, goes through the filter. That's what I use. I also go to a local spring. I'm very lucky that 15 minutes away, I can drive to a local spring for free and fill up jugs of beautiful water.
Oh my
So I do
gosh.
that as well.
My
Um,
mom lives near one too, but she lives in
yeah,
Pennsylvania. I live in Nebraska. I don't think we have any natural springs that I know
yeah.
of.
There's not a ton of them around, like available to just the general public. If you have it,
Yeah,
definitely take advantage. But even outside of that,
so
like
cold.
let's say you were going to do just tap water, which
Yeah.
is totally fine if that's what you have access to, but still it may need minerals added to it. So first of all, we want to see like from the general water that you're having now, are you hydrated enough? And so we're going to know that by having good energy, having good digestion, having good, clear, glowing skin, and your urine being like pale yellow, not clear. You can go overboard, right? And overhydrate.
Oh,
You're going to drain your minerals out if you have like clear urine. So look out for those things. If those things are not there, then we need to like think about hydration a little bit more deeply. So you can add minerals to your water in a couple of different forms. The easiest is like a pinch of like Celtic sea salt. So not your typical white table salt. It's got
Uh-huh.
nothing in it but sodium. But get like a gray Celtic sea salt or even a pink Himalayan salt, just a tiny pinch in your water through the day. Or you can purchase trace mineral drops. And you just put a couple of drops into like your water bottle, let's say, if you're drinking one through the day, and that's fine. You can add other things as well, lemon, lime, cucumbers, etc. Those won't necessarily be adding minerals, although they're still fine to add into the water.
I need it to taste like something sometimes. Right now,
Yeah,
there's nothing
for
in my
sure.
water.
For sure.
I'm getting over like a pneumonia type of thing. So like my taste buds are so off and I'm just like, I can't, everything's so different.
Yeah.
So now we're down this water rabbit hole. How much is appropriate for the person to drink a day? How many ounces?
Yeah. So there's not one standard.
Okay.
You're really looking for like those signs of being hydrated, like pale yellow urine. So it's not dark yellow. That means you're dehydrated, and it's
Okay.
clear, you're overhydrated. If your skin is supple and not dry, it's glowing, your energy is good, your digestion is functioning, etc., then you're likely okay with your hydration.
Mm-hmm.
Usually this is going to range somewhere between, now I'm in Canada, so we talk about liters, which is like 1 to 2 liters, or 4 to 8 cups, 4 to 8 ounce cups in a day
Okay.
total, and just finding your sweet spot in there. And also herbal teas can count towards this. Things with
Oh,
caffeine, so like black tea, green tea, etc., don't. They actually dehydrate you to a certain degree. Coffee also, but herbal tea can be a good addition, so that, again, like adding a little more flavor, but also some extra like medicinal benefits to your hydration.
does juice count? I see some of these nighttime girlies drinking like tart cherry juice to get ready
Right.
for bed. Does that count?
Well, I mean, all the foods you eat to a certain degree are going to have some water in them. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Some more than others. Would I count juice towards a hydration goal? Probably not.
Good to know.
Yeah.
What is our third tip?
So the third tip would be cycle tracking. So this kind of goes back to like what we were talking about before, where like a lot of women are just not aware of, like, let's say that they can change their hormones with their food, or that, what is going on in their body in
Right.
general. Doctors are not helpful in this regard. They're just really not, which is super frustrating, right? And so tracking your cycle is incredibly empowering. It brings a deeper level of body awareness that you've probably never had in your life, and it can tell you so many different things, and there's different ways to track the cycle. So let me clarify that a little bit.
Tell me, because I've heard of different ones and I want to know which one is like what you recommend and like what is easiest for our listeners.
For sure. So you can do any or all of the above, but pick one and kind of start with it and see where it gets you. So with cycle tracking, obviously there's lots of apps in there, period tracker apps that you can download. If you are trusting an app to tell you when you're fertile or when your period is coming or whatever, you're really doing yourself a disservice. There's no reason why you shouldn't use those apps, but if you're relying on their algorithm to tell you when you're fertile to try and have a baby, you're probably going to struggle a little bit. So these are the things that you can do on your own in order to help bring some more clarity to the situation. So number one is basal body temperature tracking. So this involves taking your temperature first thing in the morning, literally like have the thermometer on your bedside table. You don't want to sit up, stand up, eat, drink, whatever before you take the temperature. So first thing in the morning, and then you plot it in an app, which will make sort of a chart for you. And one of the things you'll notice, assuming you have like a healthy ovulatory cycle, is that the first half of your cycle from period to ovulation sort of has an average kind of lower temperature. And then after ovulation, your basal temp will rise and hopefully stay sustained either until you get a period, or it will continue to stay high if there is a pregnancy. This is very easy to do. The thermometers are very inexpensive. So that's always a good starting
So it can
place.
be any thermometer.
It needs to be a basal thermometer. So a basal thermometer will provide sort of more digits after the decimal point for a more accurate temperature reading.
Good to know.
Okay. So basal body temperature, number one. Number two would be cervical mucus tracking. This one is a little bit more tricky. You have to know how to observe the cervical mucus properly and how to chart it properly and what a normal cycle sort of looks like. And there's a lot of information available in books, online, other people. I talk about this. I'm pretty sure I have a whole playlist on cervical mucus in my TikTok, like stuff like that. But there's a lot of misinformation as well. So one of the biggest pieces is that when you are about to ovulate, you should or will have egg white looking cervical mucus. So literally it's clear and it feels sort of like an egg white when you touch it. And while this is true to a certain extent, not everyone is going to experience this, and you do not need that specific type in order to get pregnant. And in fact, my son is a perfect example of this because I got pregnant and I had no egg white cervical mucus in that particular site. But you can track your own patterns because everyone is going to look different, and you can see when you get to the more fertile time with the mucus. And so you can really identify your full fertile window to time intercourse better for better chances of conceiving. So that's sort of the second option and can be used with basal body temperature if you wish. And then the other one, the last one, which sort of has different variations, is like tracking your hormones. So, for example, people going through IVF will often have blood tests throughout different times in their cycle, right? Most doctors are not doing it outside of the assisted reproductive technology like situation. But there are ways you can do this at home. So, for example, there's something called a Mira fertility monitor, which involves some little wands, and you pee in a cup and then you dip it in and you put it in the machine, and it tells you what your estrogen is that day, what your progesterone is that day, what your LH is that day. And so it can help you chart your cycle via your hormones. Or you can track just LH on its own via LH strips. They're also called like ovulation predictor kits, ovulation tests, OPKs, things like that. Clear Blue is like a popular one. I really don't like LH strips on their own. I'll put that as a caveat, but that is another option as well.
I've seen that Mira before in advertisements.
Mm-hmm.
And what is our fourth and fifth tips for boosting our fertility?
So number 4 would be herbs. I'm big into herbalism. I actually own a second company called Moontime Apothecary, where we make herbal remedies for women, teas, tinctures, etc. Herbs are so supportive. You know, they can go anywhere from
100%.
herbs that provide like vitamins and minerals just to combat nutrient deficiencies somebody might be having or to restore their body after stress, to herbs that will balance your hormones or help you regulate your stress or support your thyroid, your digestion, bring your libido up, bring your energy up. Like there's so many different herbs. When it comes to like reproductive support specifically, some of my favorites are things like red raspberry leaf, lady's mantle, red clover, nettle leaf, cinnamon, motherwort, white peony root. These are all wonderful ones to sort of explore. I have lots of videos on these things too if people want to check out my TikTok. But
I
herbs
love
can
your
be
TikTok account.
extremely useful. And with my clients, I often do like custom blends with them so that we can get the herbs that are really going to directly support what's going on with them. And they find it very helpful, which is fantastic.
I've used herbs. There's a local herbalist, and I think even since Ollie was like 1, I've gone off and on to her for different tinctures.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing extended breastfeeding, like she was very careful of what herbs I could take when I was still breastfeeding. Okay, and what is your last tip?
The last one is sort of involving like movement and exercise. I hate to even use the word exercise because that like puts people off sometimes, but it's just
Right.
walking. It's just walking, especially if you can get a walk in the morning to get morning sun exposure. This is really important for like circadian rhythm, which is your sleep
Oh,
wake cycle.
yeah.
And if that is off, that will affect the whole hormonal cascade. In fact, a lot of women who do shift work, night shifts, find that they really struggle to regulate their hormones and maybe struggle a bit more on the fertility side of things just because their circadian rhythm is totally off. So the morning sun exposure, if you can with the walk, is great. If not, then anytime you can walk
How
is going to be
long?
better than no walk.
How long do you need to go for a walk? like for it to
20
be really
minutes,
effective?
30 minutes. I mean, if 10 minutes is all you have, that's literally going to do so much good in comparison to just not doing it at all. And so sometimes we get like those excuses in our heads of like, well, I just don't have an hour or 30 minutes to like put towards this, so I'm just not going to do it. But
Mhm.
literally, like you will see benefits in a 5 to 10 minute walk around your block versus just doing nothing at all. This is like a really low stress way to move your body. You know what I mean? Like really
No.
low stress.
Yeah.
And I find that there's sort of two camps of clients that I get. There's the ones that come and they're not doing any kind of exercise or movement at all. And then there's the ones that are over exercising.
Oh.
And both of those things can affect fertility, right? So we're trying to find a happy medium. Walking is one of the best happy mediums that I've found for my clients. And it also really helps with their mood, blood flow to the pelvic organs. Like it's just wonderful.
It's getting cold here. And I have this new mom friend. It's one of the moms of my son's classmate. And she goes, "There's no such thing as bad weather, Carol. You just have bad clothes."
Yeah.
She goes, "You need better winter clothes." I'm originally from Florida. I've lived here 10 years now. But like she's like, "It's time for you to get real boots. It's time for you to
Right.
get," she goes, "We're a winter family." And I was like, "That's nice. What does that mean?" And then
Yeah.
she goes, "We're out. Like you just need the appropriate clothes." And she goes, she takes a walk every single morning. And I thought to myself, I just have the wrong clothes. She was right. She was so sweet. She said it nicer than that. But,
Yeah.
and I thought to myself, like, yeah, like there is, because in the winter, sometimes it's overcast, but there are plenty of days where it's sunny, but it's really cold. So that is a goal of mine this winter is to be more active outside. I don't need to be going snowboarding because it's flat here anyway, but I just want to be I need to get there's a difference I notice like when I breathe. I have 3 puppies anyway, so they need to go for a walk. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that personally. That's my message. So before we let you go, do you think people are resistant for asking for help with nutrition in their fertility journey, or are they just not aware? What do you encounter?
Both, but extreme amounts of resistance for sure. I see this a lot, even in people who literally sign on to be clients of mine and know that this is coming. There's still a lot of resistance. And I'm not saying this with any form of judgment whatsoever.
Right,
Change is hard in any format. And no matter how much you want the end goal, so in this case, perhaps pregnancy, right? No matter
right,
how badly you want that, no matter if that's the thing you want more than anything in the world, it doesn't necessarily make doing the things to get yourself there any easier, right? And so there can
right,
be a lot of like beating themselves up over it. A lot of women experience some form of disordered eating currently or in the past. And I don't mean full on like an eating disorder like anorexia or anything like that, but just a history of dieting, fear of getting fat, fear of eating fats, fear of carbs. Like there's so many things. There's a lot of misinformation out there about what healthy eating really is. And so confusion, not wanting to get out of the comfort zone, like all of these factors come into it, which is totally valid. It's just a matter of like, can you get yourself and your mindset to the point where getting out of your comfort zone is something that you are willing to do on a regular basis? And when you get there, the nutrition and all of the other things then become a lot easier.
I bet. And can you tell everyone where they can find you on the internet and how can they work with you?
For sure. So my main social media is TikTok. It's just Robyn Srigley there. I have an
I'll link
Instagram
it.
account as well, but I'm not really active there. So definitely on TikTok.
I
I don't
love
know. Are
that.
you going to put up like my email address? We can put it
Yes.
there.
I'll
So
put all of your links in the show notes so
perfect.
that I'll link your Instagram, your TikTok, and your website and the apothecary. And I'm so grateful for you to have said yes to come here and share your knowledge. You're such a light and so grateful for you sharing all this. I didn't know. You certainly educated me. So I'm so grateful for all of these tips. And I'm sure the listeners are going to just be so grateful for you too. So until next time, listeners, let the Reiki flow. Frustrated being told you are fine by your doctor, exhausted from negative pregnancy tests every month, wanting a deeper connection on your fertility journey with your spirit baby? The Make a Baby membership is exactly what you need. Using Reiki will help you connect to your spirit baby, heal the trapped emotions blocking fertility, and support you in our life-changing community. With over 90 Reiki babies, we invite you to try the Make a Baby membership for free. Check it out in the show notes. Let's get you pregnant.